to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everybody, you are listening to episode 28, Returning to the Workforce with Confidence. How are you guys doing out there? I'm amazing. And I have to tell you, every time I hear my theme music and my producer Brian counting me in, I love it. I think, man, I love my life. I do. I love my life. I love my job. I love doing this show for you guys week after week. So I have really, I have spent the last couple of years just consciously and deliberately crafting my coaching practice and trying to make an amazing career for myself. And I tell you, it just keeps going. And this show plays a big, big role in that. So thank you for finding me today. We have a really good, pretty meaty topic. I have a lot to share with you guys today about returning to the workforce and how to do it confidently. And so I'm going to extend an invitation to you guys today to listen to all of this and share it maybe with someone else that you know who maybe has been out of the workforce and they're going to be getting back into it, or maybe that's you. But whoever you are, thank you for joining me. We've got a great show today. So we're going to go in depth today on something that I've kind of woven this topic into a lot of my other shows, but I haven't really devoted an actual show to how to get back in the game and how to get back into the traditional workforce when you've been out of it. I think that can be a really intimidating experience for a lot of people, whatever the reasons. There's a lot of things I think that can pull you out of work, and many people don't really know what steps they should take to get back into it and be competitive and be viable really in the job market. So today's episode, we're going to outline some practical steps that you can take to get back in the game with ease and with confidence. So there's a lot of reasons why this happens too, and I think of course the most common thing probably would be staying home to raise your kids, which typically is the mom, but maybe not always. But I think that's one of the most common reasons why people get out of the workforce. And then, when you're out of it for 10 years, something like that, it can be really hard to get back in. But I've worked with other folks as well who maybe have been out for other reasons, taking care of your ill or aging parents, maybe just going back to school, full-time, travel, your own personal illness. There's so many things. And it's actually more normal than you think too, because I've worked with a lot of people who've had long gaps on their resume. And one of the biggest things that they say is, is this normal? Does this not happen to people very often? Let me tell you, it happens to more people than you think. It's normal to have to take time off work sometimes. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how to overcome that and how to get your confidence back up, and what steps you can take if you're not really sure where to begin. So before we dive into, if you haven't, I want to let you join my Facebook community. I've got an awesome little Facebook group going to kind of coincide with the show. It's called Career Uprising, and you'll get a lot of extra support, engagement, and tidbits. I'm there in the group. I hang out there. I answer career questions and things like that. So that's a great extension of this show. And if you haven't had a chance to join, you should do that. All right. I think it would help you a lot, and help you to really even get even more out of this show and connect with me in another way. So, all right. So how do we do this? Getting back into the workforce with confidence. So, anytime you're looking for a new job, the first step, of course, is always to determine, what do you want to do? And this can be, if you haven't actively been working for a while, this can be really hard. You may or may not want to go back to doing whatever you were doing before. So it's definitely a process. And I think that sometimes too, it's interesting how sometimes if you leave the workforce, you're out for a while for whatever reason, I think a lot of people find when they come back that they have a different perspective. Maybe they have a different idea of what they want to do, different priorities. They're kind of not completely the same person that they were when they left before. So it's amazing, I think, what time away from something can do for you mentally. So that's why sometimes you have to kind of reevaluate, what do I want to do? What are my priorities? What am I interested in? What kind of position makes sense for me right now? So that's the first thing. If you haven't done that yet, if you haven't asked yourself those questions, if you haven't started brainstorming that, doing research on some potential careers, that's where you want to start. And I would recommend you brainstorm your interests, your strengths, and your priorities so you can determine what kind of position makes sense for you, because you want to have a clear direction before you start the process. You'll save yourself a lot of time and frustration if you can get a good sense of what jobs you want to target before you start your job search. All right. Because you'll gain clarity though, and course correct as you go, certainly as you get engaged into the process and start applying for jobs. But I want you to do some exploration first. So write out, what are you interested in? That's your interest. What do you like? What kind of stuff is it technology, working with people? What do you like? What are your strengths? So brainstorm, what are your top couple of strengths? What are you good at? What kind of job functions do you like? What do you want to spend your time doing all day? And then your priorities are things that are a little bit more firm, like location, salary, working from home versus working in an office, full-time, part-time. Those are your priorities, those things that kind of matter to you. Do you need health insurance or not? All of those things. So walk yourself through those things a little bit. And if you need more help, I coach people, of course, in my practice. And I also use some career counseling assessments that are really, really helpful as well for people who are still kind of stuck and not really getting the clarity that they want. So, or maybe aren't sure what their strengths and weaknesses really even are. So there is help out there if you are feeling a little bit stuck with that part of the process getting started. But then your next step, of course, is going to be to put together a resume or update it. If you haven't been working recently, you probably haven't needed one, right? Well, now you're going to need one. So, and I will say too, as a note here, whenever someone has a gap on their resume, and I call a gap 6 months or more, anything less than that's not really that much of a gap. But if you've been out of it for a year or more, certainly, I always stress that you should note that gap on your resume. Don't just ignore it. You should list briefly why you were out of the workforce. Don't just ignore it. So, for example, you can say personal leave of absence to care for ill parent, or full-time student, or personal travel. Or you can say, just stay-at-home parent, and then list the years. And that's all you really need to do. But you need to mention it. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to over-explain it or anything like that. But you should mention it, because you don't want the person reading it to just think you've just been unemployed all this time, right? You want to explain and answer that question that is going to be on their minds, and that will actually help you to get more interviews rather than just pretending that it's not there or hoping that they don't notice the gap. Always explain it. The gap on your resume is really only fatal when you don't explain it. And you don't, like I said, don't go into a lot of detail. One line is all we need. But it will actually help increase your chance of getting callbacks for interviews to have a simple explanation there, because they're going to be wondering, right? So go ahead and answer their question. And whenever you are writing your resume, always write with authenticity. Don't make up job titles for yourself. There's some really, really, really bad advice out there. You can Google and find these articles, I'm sure, that tell, like, stay-at-home moms, for example, or stay-at-home parents, that they should call themselves, a domestic CEO or, chief home officer or whatever silly titles you can think of to make it look kind of like you were working or something. Don't do any of that. Just be realistic. Just call it what it is, okay? You don't want to hurt your credibility or anything like that. Just say leave of absence or stay-at-home parent. Just speak the language that they will understand. It's a person that's going to be reading this, so they'll get it. They will get it. I promise you. All right. So those are your first two action steps. I want you to do some good brainstorming and a self-inventory and make sure that your perspective hasn't changed and figure out who are you now that you're getting back into the workforce? Who are you and what do you want to do right now? And get a resume together that will support that direction that you chose. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I've got a lot more information to cover with you guys. So let's take just a quick commercial break for about 2 minutes. Then when we come back, we are going to launch into even more action steps that you can take to get back into the workforce with confidence and with ease. All right, stick with me. We'll be right back. Hey, everyone. While the show takes just a quick break, I want to invite you to connect with me personally to get help in your career. If you like what you've heard so far, sign up for my mailing list so you can be a part of my community. I offer all kinds of career-related advice, and I have a free guide that I created just for you called Strategies for Interview Success, and you'll get it instantly in your inbox as soon as you sign up. Head over to worksmartcounseling.com/signup. That's worksmart, counseling.com/signup. Or go to my show page on infloradio.com and get on the list today. All right, let's get back to the show. Hey, everybody. We are back. Thank you so much. All right. So we are tackling how to get back in the game and get back into the workforce. If you've been out of it, maybe to take care of yourself if you were sick or your kids or travel the world, whatever it was. A lot of things can pull us away from our jobs. We have lives, right? We're people. It's hard to work consistently your whole life uninterrupted. Life happens sometimes. So I always like to normalize that situation as somebody who works with so many people of all different walks of life, in all different fields. I've helped a lot of people who have been out of work for whatever reason, get back into it and get their confidence and their presentation up so that they can get going again. So you can do it. You can absolutely do it. All right. So my first couple pieces of advice were to get clear on what you want. What do you want to do right now? Are you going to return to the same work that you were in before or do something different? And then get a resume, of course, together, right? So you have something to kind of show for that. So then I think your third step, of course, is if you have not been working and you haven't had to be in job search mode mentally for a long time, I can't underestimate the importance of practicing interviewing. Okay. If you have not interviewed in a while, and especially if it's been years, you need to devote some time to this. It's one thing to think in our heads how to say something or how to answer a question, but it's a whole nother thing to actually say it out loud. So you need to practice saying it out loud. And that's going to give you a lot of confidence because confidence is a big factor in interviews. It really, really is. And it's natural to not have it when you haven't been doing it. You've been out of practice for a while. So whether you get professional help from someone like myself or at least practice with somebody that you know, I tend to think that the more neutral and unbiased the person that you're practicing with is, the better. But it's better than nothing to at least get in front of the mirror or a friend or a family member and practice speaking out loud and articulating your strengths and your value. And certainly you're going to want to too practice how to overcome the question of what have you been doing, when you're out of the workforce and that type of thing. So you're going to have to address that gap on your resume. So you're going to want to be prepared for that because most likely you will be asked about that. Absolutely. And you want to be honest and confident and authentic in your answer. So you got to practice it. All right. So here's another question too. So for a lot of people who've been out of the workforce for a while, one of the problems is that their skills might not be up to date. They haven't had to use a lot of them. They've been focusing on maybe other things. So this will definitely be true, I think, if it's been more than just about 6 months or so. If it's been a couple of years since you have been really working, you may have to think, okay, what skills am I going to have to sharpen up that I have not been using? And obviously going back to school, of course, is a great way to fix that. But what do you do? I don't know. If you can't afford or don't have time to go back to school and get a full new degree, what are your options? So there are options out there too. One thing that I will tell you that I did during a number of years ago when I had some downtime because I was unemployed and had been laid off, I took that opportunity to go to a local community college and brush up on some of my computer skills that I thought I was going to need in some of these jobs that I was applying to. So I just took some individual courses from a local university and I did them all online. It was self-paced, super affordable. And I'm a big fan of doing things like that. You don't always have to go full-blown back to school. You can pick some selective skills that you want to improve and then find either full universities or community colleges, online schools, that type of thing, where you can take individual courses or maybe a short-term certification program, something like that, that doesn't necessarily involve a full degree. You can do that. And the beautiful thing is education has never been more flexible and more accessible, really, than it is today. So take advantage of that and research some potential options and know that it's not always about going back to school full time. There are in between options, short term, and I've done them, and I think it's great. And when you do, I think you should put those things on your resume. Highlight that recent education or training or seminars, things like that you've gone, and that will help to fill in the gap a little bit and show that you are taking initiative to sharpen your skills and stay up to date, and that you're serious about getting back into the workforce. Okay, things like that only stand to help you. And sometimes when you research these programs, just to help you out, sometimes they're called maybe workforce development. You might want to look at that, or adult continuing education, something like that at a local university, community college, online school. So I think when I did it, I went to George Mason University, which is a big university here. And then also I've done that, and I've also done our local community college. They have workforce development programs as well. So, all right. So once you have a direction, you have a resume, you've practiced interviewing, you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's in that way, of course, your next big hurdle is getting in front of employers and visibility. What can you do to find job opportunities and connect with potential employers? And there's a number of ways that you can do this. And I'm going to run through a couple just kind of at a high level here because we don't have time to go into a ton of detail with these things. But I think one that people don't always think of right away that I have used successfully is staffing agencies. Connect with a staffing agency. Just do a Google search for them in your area. And depending on your line of work, this might work for you. It might not. But I would try and do that. It's free for you as the job seeker, and they can place you oftentimes in a job that is right for your skills, and they can liaison between you and the employer. Staffing agencies, I believe, can be a great way to kind of tap into that hidden job market because many of the job postings they have are not going to be posted other places, and that's intentional. So I would really encourage you to at least try this. There's really no risk, no cost involved, unless you want to get up into like a headhunter, truly like an executive search firm. Those cost money, but most people won't need that. So look into local staffing agencies. Then LinkedIn. I'm a big, big fan of LinkedIn. I'm on it every day. I actively use it in my career, and when used correctly, it can be very, very valuable and a good way for you to get visibility. So I don't know, maybe you're already on it, maybe you're not, but if you're getting back into the workforce, I really think that updating your LinkedIn or creating one and getting active on it, building up connections, again, is only going to stand to help you. All right. Visibility really is the name of the game when you're launching a job search. It's about getting your name and your face in front of people. And I love that LinkedIn does that. It makes making connections and meeting new people so easy to do. So if that puzzles you, if you don't know what I'm talking about, or maybe you have a LinkedIn and you're like, this thing is useless, contact me. I do extensive LinkedIn coaching. I can teach you how to use it and actually make it work for you. So if you feel like I'm talking a foreign language here, then maybe you want some one-on-one attention with that. But and then of course, good old-fashioned networking. Please, please, please engage the people that you know in your job search as much as you can. If they don't know, they can't help you. And people are willing to help you more than you think. So friends, family, neighbors, people at school, church, volunteer work, PTA, whatever you've been doing, make sure they know that you are looking and what you are looking for. That way they can help you better. All right. And then career fairs. Career fairs aren't necessarily dead. A lot of people maybe think they are. I don't think they are. It depends on what line of work you're in and maybe where you're at in your career. But it's worth doing a search online for career fairs and hiring events in your area. The benefit of this is that it puts you right there on the spot interview face to face with the employers and kind of bypasses the job boards, which I haven't gotten to, but I'll get to those in a second. So that's why I'm advocating that. Oh, if you can find one. They're big in our area, maybe not everywhere, but that is an option for some people. So staffing agencies, LinkedIn, your network, career fairs. And then the last thing I'm going to say is yes, the online job boards. That's the most common way that people like to apply for jobs today. And it's okay. Just don't rely on it too much. Don't make it your only strategy because that will be a very, very slow approach and painful, slow and painful approach. But what I would do is engage all of these strategies, okay? Use a little bit of all of them. Diversify your method. Get yourself out there in a multitude of ways to increase your exposure. So yes, you can do some applying on job boards, but make sure you work in some of the other networking and LinkedIn and things like that to balance it out so that you have a good kind of holistic approach, I would say. And then I think my final words of wisdom for anyone going through a transition like this is to get help and get support. You don't have to do it alone. Whether you use a coach or someone like me, or use your friends, your network, people really do want to help you, and help is out there. If it was somebody that you knew and the situation was reversed, would they help you? I mean, would you help them? If somebody you knew was going back into the workforce and was hoping that you would, maybe just keep an eye out for opportunities or refer them at your company, would you be willing to do that? You think about it. You probably would. And I would say to remember that this is a process. It can take time. Yes, it might take longer for you to land a job knowing that you've got this big old gap on your resume. Yes, it might take longer. So you have to manage your expectations, but it will happen. I've seen way too many people that I've worked with be successful in getting back into it. I've worked with people who've been unemployed for a year or more, and I have seen them absolutely get back in there. And I don't mean flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. I mean finding meaningful jobs in their chosen line of work. And here's the kicker. A lot of them are like 50 plus their age, because I work with older job seekers for the most part. And that's what I love. And I love blowing their minds when they see that, yes, despite their age, and yes, despite having been out of it for a while, they can still get back in it. There is a job for them. So there is a job for you. Okay, so this is a process. Embrace the process. It's not going to happen overnight, but the more you embrace this process and the more you get help, the easier it's going to be. I promise you. All right. So there's another show that comes to mind too. I don't know if you guys who follow Inflow Radio, Divorce with Heart, Gina DePrima is the host of that, also on this network. And I did an interview on her show about a month ago. It was a great interview, all about this topic. It was all about women who've gone through divorces and they haven't been working, but now they're getting divorced. They got to go back to work and support themselves. So that could be another show, whether you're a man or a woman, to be honest. Really, there's a lot of great information that I gave on that show. So check that out. The show is called Divorce with Heart. It was just a couple of, maybe 4 weeks ago. I think it was aired in September or end of August, something like that. That's a great supplement to this show with probably even more information. So I hope that it helps you guys. Again, that's it for today, episode 28. And I hope that you continue listening. I thank you. I love my listeners. You guys are awesome. The show is just growing by leaps and bounds. So if you ever want to reach me, you can email me at Lorraine@careeruprising.com. You can join my Facebook group. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. Whatever it is your fancy. I thank you for listening. And I want you to go out there, guys. Be fierce, be magnificent, and I will talk to you next time. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.